Rosita Sana. Tickets were cheap.
Oh.
All right.
How you doing?
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order a regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Goshen Central School District held on Monday, November 20th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. in the District Administration Building and being live streamed on YouTube. Now we'll rise for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda, I need a motion for executive session. John and Ashley. Be it resolved, the Board of Education will enter into an executive session with the intent to reconvene the business portion of the meeting for discussions related to a student discipline matter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll be right back. All right, thank you, everybody. I need a motion to reconvene the meeting. All right, I have John and Scott. Looks like we have no one signed up for privilege of the floor. Nothing, okay. Very good. All right, next item on the agenda, the president's report. So just a few things that I wanted to share with folks. We have on our consent agenda a couple of folks in the district getting hired as drivers and custodial workers. So good luck and congratulations to all those other folks who helped make this district run. Good luck out there. Second, we've been spending a lot of time as a board working to really help increase the knowledge of how privilege of the floor works. And we've reformatted some of our sign-up sheets. I'll probably restate this again next meeting, just in case you're listening and you're not here. There aren't too many folks present tonight. But what happens after you've spoken at the podium and shared your thoughts and your challenges? We've heard from parents regarding transportation, different departments, individual cases. We've received lots of emails. So after you speak, the ball starts rolling. And then behind closed doors, any emails that we receive are forwarded over to Dr. Coates. He gives the Board of Education a weekly update as to what's happening and the actions he's taken in regards to those individual matters. He answers any questions that we have. So the ball does continue to roll. I just want everybody to know that there is still action happening, that your voices are heard, and we continue to encourage sharing your thoughts and the challenges you face. And just the last item on my report for tonight is to just wish everyone in our community a happy and healthy and safe Thanksgiving holiday coming up. That's all I have for tonight. All right, our student representative is not here tonight. Feel better. And next we have our legislative update, Mr. John Sullivan.
Still no meeting,
Still no meeting.
so
You are so lucky.
I cannot wait to give the world's longest update in December.
Wonderful. All right. Okay, any other board member committee reports? All right, nothing too much happening now. The policy committee is meeting frequently, and we have some more policies on our agenda tonight, actually. Some policies to review next. All right, with no other committee reports, we'll move on to our next item. We have our second reading and readoption for two different policies tonight. Our first one is the reimbursement for meals and refreshments, policy number 5323. So everybody wants to take a moment to read through that. Any specific comments regarding policy 5323 thus far? No. Okay. The second policy here was for budgetary transfers, policy number 5330. We did have some points of discussion on this one last time during the first read. That's a fairly short policy. And in that package, we also have the requested information from what other districts are looking at. There's a question being raised about the amount of 35,000. And I think we can see from other districts, it's really a broad range all over the place. I saw as low as 10,000 per transfer and as high as 50,000.
Yeah, I was gonna
No,
say,
100.
Blackpool's 100,000.
Wow. So with that additional information, what are the feelings?
So I guess my only concern or thought as far as this policy goes, I'm okay with the increase to 35,000. I'm not okay with not having a set amount for the month. And I think that if we had a monthly limit on that, I would feel a little bit more comfortable on that. Anything short of that, I do feel that it's our job to be fiscally responsible. And if we're looking to make multiple $35,000 or $34,000 moves each month, that can add up quickly. So I would like to see something put in place as far as some type of monthly limitation on that.
Would you suggest right at the end of that sentence, is authorized to transfer funds within the budget in the amount not to exceed 35,000 with a maximum X dollars per month?
I would be comfortable with that personally.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I think that makes sense.
I don't think that there's a problem with adding that language, but I do think that there's that safety net in that the superintendent will report any transfers to the board as an information item at the next meeting, so we would be advised within the month.
After it takes place,
After.
correct. So
Other thoughts from the board regarding a monthly cap? Necessary, not necessary? What do you think the appropriate value would look like? Just out of curiosity, what would you think the appropriate amount would be? Would it be 35,000 a month, a single transfer?
No.
I think it would be twice that since we meet every 2 weeks, right? So,
I would agree that I would be comfortable with that.
Dr. Coates, may I ask a question? How often are transfers of this significance made? Is this something that happens once in a while? Is this something that happens every?
Closer to the end of the school year, when we're trying to liquidate and balance books, you're going to see it more often during the regular course of the school year. The majority of the transfers that you're gonna see are under that threshold.
I guess the follow-up question to that for you, Dr. Coates, would be, does that hinder the work that either of you two have to do if there is a cap in a month and you're trying to close out books and then need board oversight or
Yeah,
approval?
I don't wanna use the word hinder, we have to abide to the policy, whatever the policy is, we're going to abide by. We would have to get into the flow of knowing that if we're gonna have amounts that are over that, certainly we're gonna have to send it to board. Does it make it move a little slower? Yes. Does it hinder it? We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna abide by whatever the policy is.
And
What's your perspective?
another point to make is that according to the comptroller, we're not supposed to have negative balances in the accounts at the end of the month. So that would limit us and we will have negatives. There's a good possibility.
Further thoughts or questions?
the sample policy from does basically state all transfers in excess required. So they are alluding to the fact that there is some sort of a, they're not saying monthly, but look at the back on the first one. Kind of vaguely written, but it does kind of fall in line with what Billy's talking about.
The NISBA sample's at $2,000.
Well, yeah, that's their same example, I'm assuming.
2006.
Would you happen to know how many transfers there may have been towards the end of last year? When we were-
I'd have to pull a report.
You'd have to do a little digging, right? Okay.
I did a lot of transfers last year during the year, cleaning up codes, creating new account codes so we could get a cleaner accounting system. So that is not typical after here for a while, but next month I also have something similar, again, $150,000 transfer that'll have to be approved because I've created new account codes. So it's not that there was what's the word? Budget not correctly done, it's just to make clearer accounts and make sure we have money in account codes that we can track for purposes of accounting in future budgets.
I would say I can understand why a clause like that might be important. However, looking at other school districts and examples that we have, none of them seem to have that. It might be good as going forward is maybe not having that clause, but if something like that happens where there's a month or several requests over that, then maybe we reevaluate it.
What were you gonna say, Brett?
No, we're kind of on the same line.
What do you think, John?
I think that I wouldn't necessarily base what other schools do as to what we do. It's a good marking point, but I'd like to think we pride ourselves with being on the forefront of doing the right thing. So, I just think that even if the cap was 3 or 4 times it, like there just should be. I would feel better if there was some safety net for us as a board. You know, as anybody's ever seen that HBO movie, if you don't catch it, you go to jail for it.
So why don't we go to 3? Could always be revisited.
Yeah.
Pretty easily, if there's an issue.
I think if we get to the point where it becomes, you know, Dr. Costen liked to use the word hindrance, but if it becomes inconvenient, I think just like we're doing right now, these policies are made to be adjusted. We could adjust it accordingly, but I'd rather have something than have like, you know, I'd rather know before this happens than after. So.
And John did bring up a good point. We have 2 board meetings a month. So I would think budgeting wise, we'd be looking forward and we would know every 2 weeks if we need to have those. It's not to say that we can't move the money. It's to say that it needs the board approval for the budget transfers above, say, if it was $70,000. So it's not saying that it would just make us more aware of it. It's not saying that they can't do it. They just need more approval. So I think that's important to remember too. Sorry, John.
Really, this is inconvenient if there's multiple transfers in a month, because, for instance, Ms. Lamoran's example of having to transfer 150,000, that would need approval anyway. So we're not adding any wrinkle to the procedure there. It's just that for some reason, you know, Ms. Lamoran had to move 35,000 5 times or something, that obviously that could cause some red tape, but I think in a good way.
Just one more, you had mentioned about, you know, ensuring that none of the balances were in the negative. So as you're balancing the budget, maybe it's more applicable towards the end of the year. If you find yourself in that situation where something goes in the red, what is the ramification of that let's say it happens in a week where we still have a week and a half till the next board meeting.
And I imagine it's a slap on the wrist and a note in the comptroller's audit report. When they do the audit.
So, yeah, I kind of generally feel having that safety net makes sense. So if we feel that way, what do you think, folks, the appropriate
I think-
amount will be, twice or 3
I
times?
think maybe 3 times the principal, just because of the way the meetings line up, God forbid, where, it's a, 5-week month.
Okay, I could be okay with that.
So 105,000 a month.
Quick math.
All right, so in this event now on the second read where we'd like to make a modification to the policy, will we just approve one, scratch the other, and have the final read next time around?
We can do it tonight with the noted changes.
Okay, we can.
Yeah, the second reading and readoption with the noted changes.
Perfect. Okay. That sounds, so everybody's on board with that? Okay, great. Okay, all right, on to our next agenda point, our superintendent's report, Dr. Curtis Coates.
Thank you, sir. So one non-agenda item that I just did want to share with the board and wanted to just make a public comment. As I had shared, we know that the Blue Ribbon Commission reported to the Board of Regents this week on 12 recommendations for changes to graduation outcomes in New York State. And the Superintendent's Association has spent a lot of time looking at what the recommendations are. I have in writing, if anyone wants a copy of the report to the Board of Regents. One of the most notable things that there was a large amount of conversation on was surrounding assessment, most specifically Regents exams. And you'll see notice in the report that there is a reflection on the need for purposeful assessment and the potential to reduce the amount of assessment, but there's also weight and value placed on the Regents exams and what the data can tell us. I think there will be a lot of reflection on math and science and ELA. It's not to discredit the work that we do in the humanities and social studies, but I think they're really focused on some skill-based outcomes with pathways for graduation. I think one of the things to keep in mind is we are some ways away, likely before the Board of Regents takes any action to adopt or not to adopt any of this, but nevertheless, there's a lot of good information that came out. There's a lot of hard work on those that sat on the Blue Ribbon Commission, and it will be interesting to see where the Board of Regents go. The pathways for graduation is certainly going to be something that districts are going to have to watch very closely, whether you're pursuing a STEM, a science, a humanities, a technology, a CTE. For smaller schools, this may be very difficult, that don't have large, vast CTE programs, and it would require a district like ours to look very closely at our investment in BOCES and CTE programs. Where the larger districts, they're going to have some more flexibility. The pathways and the credits are certainly going to have to be something that we watch very closely, but nevertheless, a lot of good information. These are available if anybody from the board wants to borrow it. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time tonight talking about board goals and objectives for the year. Mr. Capciano, if you don't mind putting that up on the screen for us. Let me know when you're ready. Thank you. Good. So I narrowed the focus this year to 2 large and significant goals. And these are goals that are repeated goals from the previous year. And I kept them there purposefully, only because the timeline, if you will, is closing in on us. As we all know, 2 budget seasons ago, Governor Hochul legislatively wrote into her annual budget that by the year 2027, all new bus purchases in the state of New York would have to be zero emissions. And by 2035, all of the vehicles in your fleet would then have to be electrified. Slightly modified that language last year that in 2027, you were supposed to start to report your inventory. Now they've backed off on the reporting for that time period, so they've given a little bit of a window in there, but nevertheless, this is going to be a significant shift for school districts in New York State. One of the things to keep in mind, a 66 passenger bus, a regular gas or a diesel powered vehicle is costing us roughly about $109,000 to $115,000, depending on the vehicle that we purchase. The larger buses sometimes will buy with the luggage compartments down below for sports and music, depending on where they go. Sometimes we need that extra capacity. Some of the work that's been happening in the background for us to make progress on this year is Ms. Lamoran and Ms. Wells have been talking with a representative from Leonard Bus Sales. One of the things that we knew about some of the, the grant opportunities was largely what we were seeing is those grant opportunities were needs-based. So districts that had higher populations of poor residents within their district were being prioritized. One of the realizations that has come is because this is going to be such a large investment and a large need for investment that there's more of a spread the wealth attitude. So some of the grant opportunities that we're starting to see are more of a first come, first served basis. So in fact, in the conversation with Leonard Bus Sales, they expressed to the district that if we were interested, kind of get moving. So what we have done is we've asked Land Associates to go into the bus garage and look at our infrastructure within the current facility the way it stands. And just simply tell us with circuitry and infrastructure, if we buy one electric bus, can the current infrastructure handle that? And they very much think that that's going to be easy for them to give us that feedback. They're going to do it on an hourly PO that we have with them for services right now. And we are in a position that if we get the green light from them, we're going to try to proceed with the purchase of one bus. And as a reminder, we did include funding in this year's budget to be able to do so. And talking with Ms. Wells and the Transportation Department, what this will allow us to do, get the vehicle in fleet, try it on the local roads, let our drivers see how it operates differently, let them see the pros and the cons to it to be able to start to get used to it. Part of the grant opportunity that happens with that, they will take one of your decommissioned large, it has to be a similar bus, so if it's a 6 passenger bus that we give over, that we purchase, that's what we have to give over. They actually take one of those decommissioned vehicles, they drill a hole in the engine block, and they give you a rebate up to about $150,000.
So the rebate's a combination of the money for that and whatever the NYSERDA is giving, it comes out to the totals for that.
Roughly about $150,000. So the one thing that we do not get assistance for is the purchase of the charger, so that we would simply have to buy it outright. I will say the costs are roughly close, but it is going to be more to buy the electric bus with the charger this year if we are able to proceed. Part of the conversation around the state right now is what is this definition of zero emissions? People are starting to have more and more conversation on natural gas. They're starting to have more and more conversation on hydrogen. Obviously, as we get closer and closer to this mandate, the question is, what will it truly look like? In honesty, some of the vehicle manufacturers that we have spoken with have said there is no way by that date that they will be able to keep up with the demand of what's going to happen around the state. So, point being, why I've left this as a major goal for this year. If we are going to move even towards 50% of our fleet being electric, we really need to make a decision with our architect on the site plan for the bus garage, what might a layout look like, and start the clock ticking, if you will, to any changes that we have to make. We did complete a fleet assessment survey with Orange and Rockland Utility. Their feedback was somewhat limited, but even that project, they said, for them alone is about 24 months. So there's a lot of work to be done here before we get to 2027. I think we need to codify a plan in writing and work towards a plan in writing and share that with the community, continue to share that with the community on what that might look like. The second goal that I've included focuses around what you were working on already tonight, and it's this concept of the policy audit. As we know, we switched over to NISBA Policy Services. And I just want to draw your attention to one thing. If you look specifically at the policy 5323, and if you look at 5323R, that is specifically a regulation. So the one thing that the district does not have right now is a regulations manual. Policy obviously is dictated by the board. It's the governance of the expectation of what the Board of Education wants from the district administration, the building administration, and staff. But a regulations manual is that next step, if you will. It talks about how policy will or will not be implemented within the district. And one thing I think we need to consider is, and it adds clarity for us in terms of operations, is what could a regulations manual look like? Within our policy right now, we have some of these sprinkled. You know, there's some regulations that have been passed over the years, but do we want to move towards purely the adoption of a regulations manual? I would suggest that we do. You know, there could be seven different board members, different superintendent, different administration. This adds sustainability for the future. NISBA would work with us on the creation of a regulations manual, and it's something that could add benefit to operations for the district moving forward. I put this in draft format, excuse me, not knowing if there was anything else that the board might want to see included for this year. I'll turn to you for further conversation.
I think initial responses to that, to not have too many goals, have something that can be a bit achievable, and that sounds great. Just personal opinion here, is the regulations manual, I think that really lends itself well as an additional tool to a full policy audit. It seems like this is the right time to build that up. And I do like the direction that we're heading with the transportation as well. Start the planning early now. Get some schematic site plan ideas. What does the big picture look like? And continue to pursue as much as we can the NYSERDA grants that are available and other grants. Let's be very active with that. I think those are great goals. It's just my personal initial feedback here.
My only question would be with land, having them come in to take a look at the current infrastructure versus just seeing if they can handle one. Can we just see what it can handle? If it can only handle three,
Want to speak to that?
That's
or
actually-
if it can only handle one, then we know if I doubt this is gonna be successful with electric buses, but regardless, if it is, and we have to move that way.
Yeah.
You want to share your?
We should know our
You
timeframe.
spoke with them a little bit
I
more.
did, and I did actually ask them to do that exact exercise. So that way, if we can purchase more buses while the money's available, if we can charge more buses than the one, that would be the way to go. So they're gonna look and see how many we can put in. Doesn't mean we're gonna buy them all at once. It just means how many we can put in without the change in the infrastructure through O&R.
Of the garage,
Right.
essentially, of what it can do existing.
We just updated the transformer there, right? That's the same transformer.
No,
That's-
that was at Scott Shinnecock School. That was for the HVAC equipment.
Did we happen to share the analysis that O&R provided
Yes,
regarding our charging with land?
I sent it out. We did with land, and I sent it out to the board as well.
Because they have to break down for the fast chargers versus slower chargers based on the range that the bus is projected to drive that day and the charging as well, right?
Yes. Fast chargers run about $30,000 more than the regular charger. So even if we could just get one fast charger, it'd be nice to know.
Anything else omitted that you would want to see as an additional goal?
Yeah, Brett was just saying, I think, the completion of our 5-year plan, moving on that. I think that's more
Yeah,
of
our
a
building
immediate goal,
condition,
right?
our condition plan, right?
Yeah, our 5-year building plan. We've had a few meetings regarding that, so that's still in the works.
With the roofs and everything that we definitely need done, I think that's something that should be on the forefront.
That's a good suggestion. We'll formalize that as a goal as well. Any other thoughts from the board? Comments?
Keep going then. So I just wanted to make note that we had parent-teacher conferences scheduled for Scotchtown, JS, and the middle school on December 8th and on December 11th. And the question came up regarding the high school. If you rewind pre-COVID, parent-teacher conferences used to happen at the high school the 2 days preceding the Thanksgiving holiday. And around COVID, all of a sudden they disappeared. And then it went without notice that there was a disparate number of conferences in the lower buildings versus the high school. So in further conversation with the building administrators, Mr. Carter, we made the decision to make it universal so that there would be an equitable number and opportunities for parents to be able to meet with their teachers in December. The timing works out well because a marking period will have passed, already, and they'll be able to look at some, some good data with families when they have those moments. So we did include the high school in those two sets of parent-teacher conferences. Love to give a large congratulations. If we look at our numbers, these are some of the best numbers that we saw in terms of induction into our honor societies. If memory serves me, we had 72 in the National Honor Society, 74 in the National Honor Society, 82 in the National Junior Honor Society, and 25 in the World Language Honor Society. I'd like to also just take a moment and give a thank you to all of our PTOs and our SEPSA. The fall has had, fall has had many, many great programs this year, from trunk or treats to parent presentations to all sorts of informational nights, and their contributions to our overall school community has just been fantastic. Last but not least, I wanted to give a congratulations to Mr. Quinlan at the high school for the fall drama production, Ms. Loftus for the acting club. I had an opportunity to attend the middle school production this past Friday. To see those students engaged and having the fun that they do to put on such quality productions really was a fantastic thing. Well done by all. I will conclude there, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Coates. Moving on to our next point, our Assistant Superintendent for Business Report, Ms. Lorraine Van.
Thank you and good evening. So tonight I'll be reporting for the months of September and October for the financial data in your board packets. But first of all, I have a couple of things to update you on. Tax collection period is over and the report is on the agenda also for acceptance. It went smoothly this year and we collected 96% of the warrant, which is in line with our past few years. So we did rather well. The electric bus, we did update you, someone on that. Land is going to be coming in soon and letting us know how many chargers we can install. Then we will bid on that work and do it as soon as we can get that going. I also learned that the EPA is releasing another round of grant money for the purchase of electric buses next week. So I'll be working on securing more funds for that as well. They come out on the 29th, which I believe is Monday. So for the financial information, the expenses for the month of September were 5.1 million and October was 6.2 million. You may recall or may not recall in the summer, the expenditures were much less. Now that we're in full swing, school is open, payrolls are all being paid out. For our 10-monthers as well as 12-month, our expenses have gone up. We received revenue, lottery aid, 4.2 million over the 2 months. Excess cost aid, we received $331,000. That's the final payment for the 22-23 school year. And our BOCES aid also for the 22-23 school year, we received the final payment of $996,000. We also received pilot payments, $525,000. And our tax collections were a little over $52 million. And I'm reporting each month on our interest revenue, and for the months of September and October, we earned $334,000. In our financial reports, the budget status report for the general fund shows our total expenses as of the end of October were 15.5 million, and the revenue earned was $62.3 million. So these are both in line with where we are as a percentage of last year's budget as well. And that's all I have for the financial information. And for the fireman's exemption, I don't know if You all received this in your.
Can I ask you a financial question? you could-
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot to ask. Yeah.
Forgive me if I overlooked it. When will we start seeing the funding for the capital improvement types completed?
So sorry, I'm trying to follow,
The
for the,
SAS, the roofs, the air.
Oh,
handlers,
so we
all
did
that.
we already received the CRISA money for that. There's two grants that we use. So we did receive the one, we have to wait till we finish the expenditures for the HVAC portion of that project. And once that is done, I'll do the final cost reports for that as well. We will get that grant money. You're welcome.
I was curious if you received another update in regards to the population of students how close we are for the free lunch? I don't know if you were
No, I
getting.
haven't. I can check with Al.
I know we were pretty close last time you asked.
Yeah. Make a note to check with Al on that. Actually, we have a meeting next week, so that's good timing.
Thank
So I
you,
can tell you in December.
thank you.
You're welcome. So it's hard to give an exact number of the impact of the firemen and volunteer ambulance people, if they should get the exemption of 10%, if the board does go that direction. You could go from 2 to 10% as an exemption for that decision. So I just took a basic number of 100 volunteers between those two departments with a $300,000 assessed value home, which is an average number. And the tax rate currently this year for 23-24 was 38.374774. And this is always, I try to do estimates based on the largest piece of our pie, so to speak, or the majority of our taxpayers, which is in the town of Goshen. They make up 69% of our taxpayers, so they're making up the biggest part. So projecting this based on 100 volunteers, and if you were to go to the 10%, which on a $300,000 home would be $30,000, and take that amount off of our assessed value, how does that calculate out on our tax levy warrant? The change comes to almost, I'll round up and say 16 cents on the dollar. So the projected rate would increase to $38.53. So that would equate to less than $50 of an increase on a $300,000 home. Again, that's an average. It's hard to say what everybody's going to be different based on their assessed value. So, and again, this is with the town of Goshen. So I did have, we did reach out a number of times to the fire department to see if they have a list of the homeowners. So then we can actually go into the tax system and see what the assessed value is and calculate a more exact number for the current year. Now, remember, this is going to be voted on. If it's voted on by March, it'll take effect in September. So you're going to see a difference anyway in tax bills because the assessments typically change. Let me take that back. The assessments don't usually change. It's the equalization rate that changes based on home sales and everything that's going on in the market. And typically they're 2 years behind. So the equalization rate will come out in early August, end of July, sometimes sooner. And then the assessed values we get from the town assessors. And those two factors are included in the calculation to get your tax rate. So there will be a difference in next year is what I'm trying to say. But for now, to compare with 23-24, this is what I can. But again, it's on 100 people. If 100 people in the fire department were to get the exemption, I think that could be a very large number, but I could be wrong. I don't know where the 180 was, so that's why I cut it down to 100 just to be safe.
So that number was on the website with 180 active members. So I'm thankful that you put this together. The other thing that I would just comment on is that I guess as years go by, the number will grow if people are spending, if they're putting their 20 years, and then that's a lifelong exemption as well.
True. They do have to put in 2 years service, and then after that. And then assessments change and equalization rates change. I hope that helped a little bit. Any other questions?
So, yeah, good time to ask any further questions regarding the
Yeah.
firefighter and ambulance workers tax exemption, because it is on our agenda for approval tonight. So if there's any other questions, we will bring them up now. And I just quickly want to thank all the community members that came out to our public forum last time around. We even received a few follow-up emails in our comments email, so we appreciate all the feedback from the community. It was all taken into consideration as we have gone through this. Everybody's generally good with the language?
Language is written in here.
Yeah.
Okay. The only comment I would have is that when the fire department was here, on section 2D, they had stated that they created theirs for at least 3 years worth of service. I would think they would just mimic what they've already done. I don't see why we would do something different, to do 2 instead of 3.
I would be okay with that to mirror what they said. Speaking about the years of service, since we're on the topic, the other item I noticed regarding the eligibility, and then for the benefit for someone killed in the line of duty versus the not line of duty or lifetime, it was just kind of a tapered number from 3 to 5 to 20 years. That seemed to align with what some of the other sample that were sent around, what some of the other districts approved. So I was okay with that as well.
Same, that'd be the only comment I really have, is just to align with what the fire department did.
Everybody else okay with that? So I'll make a note here as well. We'll change it to the 3 years to match what the fire department's already doing.
Good for me.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to our next item, our assistant superintendent for curriculum, instruction, personnel, and technology report, Mr. Jason Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Loftus. Good evening, everyone. A couple of quick items for you this evening. Just wanted to congratulate the cast and crew of the CJ Hooker Acting Club. They did a wonderful job on Friday evening with their performance of everything you wanted to know about your teacher, but were afraid to ask. I know that our students did a wonderful job, and I also like to thank Mrs. Loftus, Ms. Leva, and all the adults who really helped to make this a success on behalf of CJ Hooker. Once again, I'd like to congratulate the cast and crew for a job well done and all of their hard work and efforts. We're also very fortunate Friday and Saturday, the 17th and 18th, we had 6 students from Goshen High School performing at the NISMA Zone 9 area All-State Festival. These students were chosen after submitting a solo performance and being sent on to the All-State Festival, which actually has 40 school districts represented from 5 counties. That's quite impressive. So once again, hard work and efforts paying off within our music department. I would like to recognize Kiki Protosaltis, Henry Dong, Tanner Conklin, Matthew Schroeder, Michael Lombardi, and Rox Acklin. And of course, as always, a big thank you goes out to the entire Goshen Central School District Music Department. So this now rolls into something that we've talked about earlier in October, actually. We have All-State Music Festival coming up, and 4 of the students that we just mentioned have qualified, as we had discussed previous. But this is actually, very impressive. A very high-level solo was submitted, live audition. Scores came in, and 4 of our students, 2 performing live and 2 as alternates. This is coming up on November 30th, if you recall, through December 3rd in Rochester. So once again, just recognizing those who put in the work and are being recognized: Kiki Protosaltis and Henry Dong with All-State Symphony Orchestra. And then our alternates, Tanner Conklin with All-State Band and Michael Lombardi, All-State Band and All-State Jazz Band. So again, congratulations to those. Our entire music department working hard daily, and we're very proud of them. And finally, Miss Andrea Ricciardi, our personnel assistant, and I, we will be doing a substitute teacher orientation here tomorrow morning. Check the list to see how many we have, but we're prepared right now for 10 individuals to come in for the orientation. I anticipate that as we get through some of the December graduations, having another substitute teacher orientation, maybe in January there, February at the latest, trying to get as many substitute teachers as we can on the books to help us out. Once again, I know Dr. Coates had mentioned, but I want to congratulate all of our students who were inducted into their honor societies. The number is quite impressive. Once again, it's proof that we have students working very hard in multiple areas here in the school district. Very proud of their efforts. And I'd like to take a moment to wish everyone here with us this evening, and of course our community members at home, happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy. That concludes my report. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, moving on to our next item. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Billy, John. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? On to old business. I need a motion to approve the policy updates, second readings, and readoption. Ashley, Scott. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the second reading and readoption of the following policies. Reimbursement for meals, refreshments, number 5323. Budgetary transfers, number 5330, with noted changes, the maximum amount of transfers not requiring Board of Education approval will be capped at $105,000 per month. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? On to new business, I need a motion to approve the minutes. John and Shannon. Be it resolved on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the minutes of the November 6, 2023 regular board meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion to accept the 2023-2024 tax collector report. Right, Scott? Be resolved, the Board of Education of the Goshen Central School District accepts the 2023-2024 report of the tax collector as presented, and having determined that the tax collector has accounted for the full amount of tax warrant, directs that the list of delinquent tax items, with the addition of penalty, be certified to the Office of the County Treasurer and/or other tax enforcement office. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I need a motion to accept the donation from the Goshen Parents Baseball Association. John and Billy. Be resolved, the Board of Education does hereby accept with appreciation the donation of wind-weighted field tarps by the Goshen Parents Baseball Association for use by the Goshen Central School District Athletic Department. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And thank you very much. I need a motion to approve the agreement for special education services, Green Chimneys Children's Service. I have Billy and Shannon. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education enters into an agreement with Green Chimneys Children's Service to provide special education services to Goshen Central School District students effective July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024, with reimbursement rates set by the New York State Department of Education based on each child's program. Be it further resolved, the Board of Education authorizes the superintendent of schools to execute the agreement. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? I need a motion to approve PPS agreement, Sign Language Resources Inc. And Ashley and John. Be it resolved, the Board of Education enters into a service agreement with Sign Language Resources Inc. to provide sign language services for the Goshen Central School District effective November 20th, 2023 as follows. Services between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. weekdays, $95 per hour per interpreter. Services between 5 p.m. and 11 p.m. weekdays, $105 per hour per interpreter. Services between 11 p.m. and 8 a.m. weekdays, anytime on weekends or holidays, $115 per hour per interpreter. Be it further resolved, the Board of Education authorizes the Superintendent of Schools to execute the agreement. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? I need a motion to approve budgetary transfers. Billy, Scott? Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education approves the following budgetary transfers over $25,000. Purchase of 8x40 by 8'6" HC storage containers. 6. 11/17/23 in the amount of $45,583.08. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, I need a motion to approve the expungement request. Brett, Scott. Be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby approves the expungement of the following student discipline listed below, consistent with the Code of Conduct. Student Code 112023, date of discipline September 16th, 2022. Be it further resolved, the Board of Education hereby approves the Superintendent of Schools to take the necessary steps to effectuate the expungement. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? I need a motion to adopt the volunteer firefighters and ambulance workers tax exemption. I have John and Ashley. Whereas New York Real Property Tax Law, RPTL, Section 466A, provides for a partial exemption from taxation on real property owned by qualified volunteer firefighters and volunteer ambulance workers, or a qualified spouse of up to 10% of the assessed value of such property, if so determined by a governing body of a city, village, town, school district, fire district, or county, after a public hearing, subject to the conditions set forth in RPTL Section 466-A. And whereas RPTL Section 466-A requires that a minimum service requirement for each applicant be set 2 to 5 years of service. And whereas the Board of Education of the Goshen Central School District desires to adopt a resolution providing a partial tax exemption on real property used as the primary residence of and owned by qualified volunteer firefighters, volunteer ambulance workers, or their qualified spouses in accordance with the provisions of RPTL Section 466-A. And whereas a public hearing was held in accordance with RPTL Section 466-A. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education as follows. Section 1, grant of exemption. Residential real property owned by an enrolled member of an incorporated volunteer fire company, volunteer fire department, or incorporated voluntary ambulance service shall be exempt from taxation and assessments levied by the school district to the extent of 10% of the assessed value of such property, exclusive of special assessments subject to the requirements set forth in this resolution. Section 2, eligibility. Such exemptions shall not be granted unless A, the applicant resides in the school district and in the city, town, or village within the school district, which is served by such incorporated volunteer fire company, volunteer fire department, or incorporated voluntary ambulance service. B, the property is the primary residence of the applicant. C, the property is used exclusively for residential purposes, provided, however, that if any portion of such property is not used exclusively for the applicant's residence, but is used for other purposes, such portion shall be subject to taxation, and the remaining portion only shall be entitled to the exemption provided by this resolution. And D, the applicant has been certified by the authority having jurisdiction for the incorporated volunteer fire company, fire department, or voluntary ambulance service as an enrolled member who has served such incorporated volunteer fire company, fire department, or voluntary ambulance service for at least 3 years. The applicant must submit such certification together with the tax exemption application. Section 3, grant of life exemption. Any enrolled member of an incorporated volunteer fire company, fire department, or incorporated voluntary ambulance service who accrues more than 20 years of active service and is so certified by the authority having jurisdiction for the incorporated volunteer fire company, fire department, or incorporated voluntary ambulance service shall be granted the 10% exemption authorized by this resolution for the remainder of his or her life, as long as his or her primary residence is located within the school district. Section 4. Unmarried spouses of volunteer firefighters or volunteer ambulance workers killed in the line of duty. The property tax exemption authorized by this resolution and granted to an enrolled member of an incorporated volunteer fire company, fire department, or incorporated voluntary ambulance service shall, upon application, be continued to such deceased enrolled member's unremarried spouse if such member is killed in the line of duty, provided that A, such unremarried spouse is certified by the authority having jurisdiction for the incorporated volunteer fire company, fire department, or incorporated voluntary ambulance service as an unremarried spouse of such enrolled member who was killed in the line of duty. B, such deceased volunteer has been an enrolled member for at least 5 years. And C, such deceased volunteer had been receiving the exemption prior to his or her death. Section 5. Unremarried spouses of deceased volunteer firefighters or volunteer ambulance workers. Property tax exemption authorized by this resolution and granted to an enrolled member of an incorporated volunteer fire company, fire department, or incorporated voluntary ambulance service shall, upon application, be continued to such deceased enrolled member's unremarried spouse, provided that A, such an unmarried spouse is certified by the authority having jurisdiction for the incorporated volunteer fire company, fire department, or incorporated voluntary ambulance service as an unremarried spouse of such enrolled member. B, such deceased volunteer had been an enrolled member for at least 20 years. And C, such deceased volunteer and unremarried spouse had been receiving the exemption for such property prior to the death of such volunteer. Section 6. Application. Application for such exemption shall be filed with the assessor on or before the taxable status date of each year on a form as prescribed by New York State. Section 7. No diminution of benefits. No applicant who is a volunteer firefighter or volunteer ambulance worker who by reason of such status is receiving any benefit under the provisions of Article 4 of the state real property tax law on the effective date of this resolution shall suffer any diminution of such benefits because of the provisions of this resolution. Section 8, this resolution shall take effect immediately. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You read it one more time.
Opposed? 5-minute break. All right. And I need a motion for 5.9, approve the agreement for special education services, physical therapy services. Shannon and Billy. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves entering into an agreement with Physical Therapy Professional Care PC to provide physical therapy services to special education students effective for the 2023-2024 school year, according to the following terms. $65 per 30-minute treatment session for in-home services, $80 per 45-minute treatment session for in-home services. Be further resolved, the Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to execute the agreement. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? I don't believe there's any additional report items. Very good. Any board member issues, comments, concerns? And I just need a motion to move into executive session. John? Shannon? Be resolved, the Board of Education will enter into executive session with the intent not to reconvene the business portion of the meeting for discussions related to employment history of their personal persons. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much, everybody.